In the early 20th century in Yongala, South Australia, a tiny hamlet with just 240 people. Life is simple, the land is rugged, and the Smith family, Frederick, Maggie, and their 8 children, are the backbone of this small farming community. 7 sons and 1 daughter, their home is filled with laughter, hard work, and dreams for the future. But in 1914, the world changed. The Great War, the so-called war to end all wars, erupted, calling young men from every corner of the globe to fight. Little did the Smiths know, this war would destroy their family in a way almost unparalleled in history. Let's meet the brothers: Herbert William, Frederick Walter, Alfred Ernest, Clarence Leslie, Errol Victor, Aubrey Lyle Ann the eldest, Francis Hume, 7 strong young men with their whole lives ahead of them. But over the next 4 years, one by one, all but Francis would be swallowed by the horrors of war. The first to enlist was Herbert William, the eldest after Francis. Fueled by duty and patriotism, he signed up with enthusiasm. Soon after, the others followed: Frederick, Alfred, Clarence, Errol, and Aubrey. Even the youngest boys, Errol and Aubrey, were so eager to join their brothers they lied about their ages, using false names to dodge the parental consent needed for those under 21. As the brothers marched off to war, they left behind their sister, Lottie, and their eldest brother, Francis. Francis stayed home to manage the family farm and care for their aging parents. He was the rock of the family, never imagining he'd be the only Smith brother to survive. From Gallipoli to the Western Front, the Smith brothers fought bravely. Their letters home were filled with hope and reassurances, but as time went on, the tone darkened. War wasn't the grand adventure they had imagined. It was a nightmare. And then the unthinkable began. The first telegram arrived in 1915. Herbert William had been killed. Frederick Walter followed soon after, falling at Gallipoli. Then came Alfred Ernest, Clarence Leslie, and Errol Victor, each killed in action, their lives cut short in the mud and blood of the trenches. The youngest, Aubrey Lyle, known as Jack, was the last to go. In one of his final letters home, he sent his sister Lottie a red Australian 1-penny stamp. On the back, away from the military censors, he scribbled a simple but haunting message. But Jack didn't return. He was killed in the final days of the war. 6 sons gone. Francis Hume Smith, the eldest son and the only brother who didn't go to war, was left to carry the weight of unimaginable grief. He had stayed behind out of duty to his family, but that decision haunted him for the rest of his life. When the war finally ended in 1918, Francis tried to rebuild their shattered lives. But the farm had been sold out from under him while he was away, a devastating blow. Worse still, he believed he had failed his parents by not being able to protect his brothers. In 1923, just 5 years after the war ended, Francis was struck and killed by a tram in Adelaide. Was it an accident? Or did the burden of his grief lead him to take his own life? No one knows for sure. With Francis' death, the Smith family's story came to an end. 7 sons gone, 8 lives devastated. For nearly a century, this heartbreaking story remained hidden. It was only uncovered recently by Chris Fox, the brothers' great-nephew. As a boy, Chris's great-grandmother Lottie, the Smith brothers' sister, gave him her most treasured possession, the red stamp with Jack's message. My great-grandmother took me aside, Chris recalled, and told me this stamp was the most precious thing she owned. She said to me, "I want you to have and protect it." That tiny stamp became a symbol of the family's sacrifice. To this day, it haunts Chris. He knew he wasn't coming back, he said. Lottie lived to be 99 years old, but she rarely spoke of her brothers. Their loss was a wound so deep it could never heal. In Australian military history, the Smith family's sacrifice stands almost unparalleled. 6 brothers killed. Over 2,800 sets of Australian brothers perished during World War I, but no family suffered a loss as staggering as the Smiths. Historian Professor Peter Stanley described their story as unique, a haunting example of the human cost of war. There was no policy to protect surviving siblings in World War I. There was no Saving Private Ryan moment for the Smiths. The story of Frederick, Maggie, and their sons is a tragic reminder of the devastating toll war takes not just on soldiers but on the families left behind. Today, the story of the Smith brothers serves as a stark reminder of the cost of war. Their names are etched on war memorials, their sacrifice remembered by their descendants, and their story told so that future generations never forget the price of peace. As you hear this story, think of the thousands of families like the Smiths, families torn apart, dreams destroyed, and lives lost. The Smith brothers went to war to end all wars. Let us honor their sacrifice by striving to make their dream a reality.